Hey everybody, and welcome to this episode. It's been a little while since we've made any video updates on the Chevelle. I've actually been working on it pretty hard lately, but it's stuff that would be really boring to watch. I'm going to make a quicker video here showing what I've accomplished. As everybody already knows, this car has been wrecked before, and this frame horn took most of the damage. It also kicked up the back of the frame, and the car has always had a lean to it. I had a buddy come over that has fixed frames in the past, and he told me it can be fixed, but it's going to be expensive. So I hopped on Facebook Marketplace and started looking for a non-wrecked A-body frame. It took me about 2 weeks, and it was a couple hours from the house, but I found one that was hopefully straight. It has a good amount of surface rust, but it measured out and was in my price range. It still had the old front suspension on it, so I had to take that off. It also had a couple of rust spots, but nothing serious. I had my buddy sandblast it for me, and we found a couple of spots after blasting. And this frame horn is pretty roached from a blown up battery. I got the frame home and went straight to work on the bottom side of it, just getting rid of any seams and any spots where the factory missed. I had the welder at home, and I figured no sense in leaving anything to chance. Plus, this is going to be under the car for the rest of my life, so I wanted to make sure I didn't skip any necessary steps. There was a good bit of missed welds. Once I got the bottom of the frame cleaned up and welded up, I flipped it over and moved to the top of the frame. Obviously, it was a ton of welding, and you can only do a little bit at a time because you definitely don't want to warp a straight frame. So there was about 3 weeks of going out after work and just doing a few welds at a time. So the garage is now a disaster, but I'm finally done welding up all of the cracks and crevices that the factory missed, i.e. all of that. I just tried to do whatever I could do to make it stronger and hopefully last. So now what I'm doing is getting ready to box in the middle of the frame. And since I have no clue, let me get under here, what I'm gonna do with my engine and trans, I'm actually gonna leave the original. So I made these pieces. Also, the shop's a disaster. And then I've made these long pieces. So what I'm gonna do is, I'm still gonna use this. Oh, gotta fix that. I'm gonna push these up in here. I cut these at the shop. And push these up in here like so. And then I'm gonna put one on that side obviously too. And then I'm gonna use this and mount it to that. And that's gonna stiffen up this part of it. And then I'll be able to use all of these bolt holes. But there's the one for that side too. And I cut some for this side, but it needs to come down a little bit, but it's getting there. Oh, so much work. At the shop, I cut a couple of 1/8 inch pieces for boxing in the middle of the frame and welded them carefully, of course. I cut a couple extra pieces there and just kind of filled everything in, made sure everything was super solid. So the middle of the frame is basically a complete box now. I also went ahead and made a brace for the rear control arm. I decided to make a rear shock tower brace as well. I've seen a few of them online, and I had the extra 1x laying around. It actually turned out better than I expected. A couple more gussets just to make sure that everything's tied in. And the final piece before I decide that it's as much as I can do at the house and the frame needs to go back to the shop is this body mount hole was rusted and really thin. I made a template out of 1/8" steel and cut the old one out, trying to get the new one to fit. I've got measurements from hole to hole that I'm trying to use and trying to be within about a 1/16 or an 1/8 at the very most. I don't want to do all this work and then the body not fit on the frame because of one hole. So I finally get it all figured out, get it cleaned up, I can get it welded in, and then obviously clean up the welds too. Now it's time to get it back to the shop and do something about that frame horn.